say Roman.
I'm having a wonderful chat with Joshua Roman. He's in New York City at his apartment, it looks like, and I'm here in Santa Barbara, and we are going to chat about his upcoming. He has a couple of gigs coming up in California. In fact, a couple in January I see also.
Okay.
But the initial big moment coming up is Joshua's debut with the Los Angeles Philharmonic on November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the Walt Disney Hall with a very unique, interesting piece. I have no idea. Couldn't find it's that fresh. I don't. At least I couldn't find a record. I can't wait to hear the piece. I hope I can get down there for it. And Joshua is also doing a very special kind of a private performance for those who give $2,500 and above at the Music Academy of the West here in Santa Barbara. And those lucky folks, by the way, that event is on October 29. And those of you that would like to have a very special opportunity to see Joshua up close and personal, all you need is $2,500 or more, and you're in. October 29th at the Music Academy of the West, a wonderful kind of reception and performance that Joshua is giving. But the real big news, as I have said ad nauseum, is this upcoming concert with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And Marianne Alsop, the wonderful conductor, will be conducting. It's going to be a little bit of everything. There's the Tchaikovsky Sixth Symphony, ends the program, of course. Barber's unbelievable second essay for orchestra. Wow, that's a performance. And then this amazing new piece, circa about 2006, by the Argentinian composer Oswaldo Golihov, Azul. And why don't we just start there? I'm gonna let Joshua, so that I don't get in trouble. Josh, would you please explain to me what this piece is? Your friends that are going to be joining you, your fellow artists on this amazing work.
Yes, well, it's a beautiful concerto for cello and orchestra, which really takes more of its model from, let's say, a Baroque adagio, some of Couperin's works. But in what that means is that the cello is not conceived as a virtuosic solo role. So even though the cellist is the soloist, it's more of a contemplative piece, and you could say an obbligato solo cello part leading the moods, leading the textures and the colors that are coming through. And there's actually a group of musicians, two percussionists and hyper accordion, that accompany the cello in much of it and are sort of a unit. There are parts when the rest of the orchestra is combined in various ways as well, but the way that Golihov divides the orchestra and the solo group in ways to create various colors and moods is very interesting and very well thought out. There's a lot of meaning behind every gesture that he uses and every pairing that he makes. Beautiful.
Is it well done? Is it in one movement?
It's in four movements, but it can be heard as, let's say, two parts. It's described as being in two parts, but it's really four movements. There's a beautiful sort of, I would hesitate to say slow, even though it is slower. I'd say moderato or something. It's very energetic by the end, organic movement. And then the second movement is called silencio, it's silence, and it's very, very still. I mean, this would be the slow movement compared to the first one. And it's absolutely, for me, it calls to mind not only the Baroque structure implications, but really the silence of Messiaen in some ways. And the third movement is one where you really hear that group of soloists up at the front coming to the fore, the percussion and the hyper accordion and the cello. That's a really exciting movement. And then the last one sort of ties it all together, and it really goes to an interesting place. I won't spoil the surprise, but you really go on a journey in this piece, and where you end up is quite remarkable.
And we all know what an accordion is, but can you help me out? I see hyper accordion. What? It's
Actually, I think the best thing to do, since we're on the computers, is to go Google hyperaccordion and listen to it. You'll find it in a lot of Piazzolla's works as
yeah.
well. I mean, there's the bandoneon and there's the hyperaccordion and the accordion. There are subtle differences between all of these that are best, I think, best heard and seen. So do a Google or a Bing search and you'll see images of the various differences, and I think that'll explain it much better than I could.
Okay, put me in my place. I got to about the first sentence, Googling, and then thought, I'll let him explain it. Okay, we're all gonna go to Google and we're gonna look up hyper accordion. And by the way, Golehov is famous for his folk tunes, this kind of these Latin sounds, imitations of Piazzolla. You've also just explained that this is real chamber music, a concerti, really a concerto grosso in that kind of form, a four-movement form, perhaps. Other soloists. I mean, it really does harken back, as you said, to an earlier period in terms of style, style and form, perhaps. You want to throw a little more at me about that?
Yeah, it's actually even deeper than that. Goliath wrote a work for soprano and quartet called Tenebrae, and there's actually, while you're on Google, you might as well look on YouTube and listen to Tenebrae, which there are beautiful recordings, especially of the string quartet version. It's absolutely a lovely piece, and he used that form as the basis for this. Tenebrae takes its form and its basic idea from Couperin, from I believe it's the letters of the Tenebrae, or I forget the exact title, but it's actually a very strong connection to this old form and this religious feeling. So that also permeates Azul. A lot of the silence, a lot of the movement is built around creating an atmosphere of spirit, I think. A spirit that is transcendent and communicative and communal, especially communal. So it's a really remarkable work which has ties deep in history and deep in Golihof's own works as well.
Mm-hmm. And he is. I hate to sound corny about this, about him being a spiritual sort of person. That's probably a misnomer. But I'm thinking of the one piece I do have in recording, La Pasión según San Marcos, which is an extensive choral and orchestral work with other instruments. But the point is, it's a mass essentially, if I'm not mistaken. And so he is coming from a very spiritual point, it seems to me, in his music. And you seem to confirm that. Are we close?
Oh, yes. I mean, the other piece that immediately springs to mind is the Dreams and Prayers of Isaac the Blind. There's definitely an element, if not outright religious element, it's definitely spiritual in nature.
Yeah.
This is somebody who likes to explore roots and not just on the surface, but really connect sounds to their meaning. And this piece works very well with that. It's very successful. It's not something with actual words, even though he does write words in parts. He writes Jerusalem at in the fourth movement.
KS en español. Is it español?
He writes it Yeru, Jerusalem.
Is it Jew? That's Hebrew, is it maybe, or what?
Hebrew, yes. But that, I think, is pulling that spiritual element into it, and you'll recognize some of the musical influences if you listen to the Tenebrae before you listen to Azul.
Excellent, good advice, everybody. Take it, get busy, all of us. By the way, speaking of YouTube, I happened by accident. Well, I was looking for you, but I came upon the David Popper series.
Yes.
Would you please tell? Let me just give a couple of dates. David Popper, composer, 1843 to 1913, just to give everybody an idea of where this man was. And give me this one. It's a beauty. And everybody should go to YouTube, look up Joshua Roman, and have a listen to this series of etudes.
Well, it's really David Popper was kind of one of those cellists that changed the game. He was not only a player, but a pedagogue, and he came up with these 40 etudes, which every cellist since has had to learn. Yes. So once you're, depending on when you start, I mean, I think I started on Popper etudes when I was around 9 or 10, and just ever since, there's always been a Popper etude in my life. So I started this series as a way to work on not so much technique, but it was after I'd left the Seattle Symphony, which I was in for 2 years. I was on my own, and I had a concert every couple months, but in between, I had all of this energy to practice, and I didn't have the weekly structure of symphony concerts or previously of lessons at school. So I started this project as a way to create a focus in my practice. And I really didn't think anyone would watch it. It's been really exciting. I just finished the project on August 31st, and the idea was to post all 40 Popper etudes and just to film them using my laptop. wherever I was when I happened to have one ready. I was supposed to get it done in 40 weeks. It took 3.5 years, but I finished it. It was difficult to stay on task when things started going well, but it
Yeah.
really helped me with focusing on practicing. And the channel has over 275,000 views now. It's just kind of blown my mind, and I'm thinking about what phase two will be. Getting ready to announce that, and excited to start doing some Bach, taking kicking it up a notch. But it's an interesting project, mostly for cellists because we play the proper etudes, but don't really play them outside of lessons. So this has kind of been a way, I think, for cellists to connect with each other over something that we all endure or enjoy.
But it's as you know very well, it's far more than that. I obviously, or I wouldn't be here chatting to people on Skype. But this new age we're in is just amazing, and part of the great joy. I can't wait to get back and listen to them honestly, and go
Oh,
through the series. So it's not just for cellists; it's for people who want to see. We get a peek into you. You're in a hotel room.
right.
You're on the road and you sit down and focus your attention and play an etude. For example, these series that I'm a clarinetist. I had my own Rose etudes, but it's a marvelous experience for everyone, I think.
Well, it's very nice to hear that. I have been, I will say, surprised by the number of people who aren't cellists that listen to them. I had one woman who was very sweet, and she came up to me. I was where I was. I was at the U.S. Open tennis tournament, and she had watched. At that point, I don't remember how many I had recorded, but she had watched them all in a row. Now, each of these etudes are between 2 and 4 minutes usually. So she spent almost, I'm sure, an hour, because I think I had around 30 at the time, almost an hour listening to proper etudes, which kind of blew my mind. But there are actually beautiful moments in all of them, and well, most of them are recorded in different places. A good number are recorded in my apartment, but sometimes I was outside in a vineyard or in a
Ooh, missed
garden.
that one. Those are going to
I
be
don't
interesting.
remember which one that was, but it is there. There is nice music in there, and it's very. I would say the one thing Popper is he's always elegant. So
Hmm.
it's nice. I'm glad it has gone further than I thought it would.
And I guess that explains why you cellists are so elegant.
Well,
Oh,
we try.
there was a long pause there. Now I
We
got
try.
just little. I'm going to touch and go with you a little bit, and then I think we'd better call it quits, or we'll bore everybody to death. I want to know this about performing a role recently as soloist slash conductor with the Ensemble Orchestral de Paris. What's that about,
Yes.
and what are you looking for in the future here?
Well, that was an opportunity that just sort of jumped up out of thin air. I was actually in Oslo performing at the Oslo Freedom Forum, and I got a phone call from a friend who had heard me talk at a party, I think at a New Year's party or something. We'd been talking, and somehow conducting had come up, and I had said, "Yeah, I'd be interested in that someday." And she called and she said, "So, how interested and how soon?" And I was like, "Why?" And literally 2 weeks later, I was in Paris, or maybe it was three, no more than 3 weeks later. I was in Paris. There was an amazing program that this Ensemble Orchestral de Paris ran, and Joseph Swinson took charge of it. And what they did is they took five soloists, one from China, one from Belgium, one from France, one from Spain, and I actually replaced someone who wasn't able to come. So that's why it was so last minute. But they took five soloists interested in learning about conducting and gave us an enormous amount of time over 8 or 9 days with a string quartet and a pianist, and then with an orchestra. Just so much time. And we got to work on what it's like to conduct a Beethoven overture and also a concerto from our instrument. So I did the Haydn C major cello concerto, and it was an unbelievable experience. I mean, the musicians were very open and they were extremely generous with their time. And it really inspired me to look at conducting as something that is a way of bringing existing joy out of musicians and helping them share that. It's not something that I'm pursuing, shall we say, it's not the next thing on my radar, but I'm interested in learning more about it. I don't want to do it unless I do it very well, so I'm being very cautious about the opportunities that I look for and hoping to spend more time learning than, shall we say, uh, going out of my league.
Okay, and I'm a conductor in retirement, I guess you'd have to say now, but have been through the training, all that stuff. And when the minute you said string quartet and piano, I knew, ooh, that's a good one. That's a very good training ground right there. You don't need the full orchestra. You just need to get that idea of how to work with people, and that kind of an ensemble is a great thing. And of course, then we're not talking no offense, but I better think of some obscure little orchestra in the middle of nowhere. We're talking about the big city. This is quite a risk. So presumably your colleagues were also at your level.
They
Yes.
were, I mean, there was definitely a high level of playing, and what was interesting was seeing the different ways that the non-experienced as conductor people who felt musically comfortable would get in front of an orchestra, and how the orchestra would respond to our personalities. I think conductors, of course, have wildly different personalities, but if you take those wildly different personalities and strip away all of the training, it's, I mean, then you really get something interesting. So it was fun seeing. That was where the orchestra was, I think, most helpful, not just because of the sound and the scope of what we were doing, especially in the Beethoven overture for me, which was much bigger in instrumentation than the Haydn concerto, but in terms of knowing what it's like to stand in front of a group of people who know the music and have an idea that you should share with them, that it better be well done, or else why should they follow you? But it was a real exercise in humility, and for me, really in joy.
Yeah, well, you just nailed it. It's a tremendous, enormous, huge, almost overwhelming responsibility. And
Yes.
it took me a long time to figure that one out. I just thought it was a hell of a lot of fun there once upon my youth. The what was the other thing I was going to say? Something about well, I think we've had that. Oh, I remember. You're I think 28, something.
I am 28,
Okay,
yes.
so there are plenty of you got at least two, three, four more decades before you might consider moving on to conducting, which so many. And another quick one, Joshua Bell himself told me last spring. He said that the big secret is that really orchestras don't need conductors. They just need what you described, someone that can put forth whatever that energy, whatever that feeling is, whatever that sense of musicality is that's so necessary. You were going to say something.
I was just thinking when you said several decades before moving on. It's interesting. I don't think I'll ever stop playing the cello. I know I won't, but it is definitely something that it's a seed that's starting to grow. That yes, there are other things also, and one of the great things I also started composing recently, and composing and conducting are ways of looking at music that are so rich. And my performance of Azul is a great example of something. I've come at this piece in a different way, in a more grounded way than I have with most of the pieces. And part of that opportunity is that this is one of the first pieces that I'm learning from scratch after having these experiences of composing and conducting. But looking at the score, understanding what the piece is about, what is the composer's intention, what do I hear in it? And then thinking, what does the solo line mean? Rather than approaching it from the opposite direction, has been something that has really changed the way I view my role, and I think really enhanced the understanding that I have. It's very exciting to find a whole new level of commitment to music making. So I'm really excited about this path in every way.
Well, you're not a TED fellow for nothing, based on what you've just told me. And let's run it by, and then I think I'm done with you. You can get back to your life. We are speaking with Joshua Roman. He is going to be playing in Santa Barbara on the 28th for a private engagement at the Music Academy of the West. But I do want to give the Music Academy a little plug there because they are such a major institution, and you know that as a former Academy Fellow on cello in Once Upon a Time. But the really big event is coming up at the Walt Disney Hall on November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, Los Angeles Philharmonic. Marin Alsop conducting, and we're going to have that is going to be a program of Tchaikovsky Sixth. You can't go wrong there. The Barber, unbelievable second essay for orchestra, and then this amazing piece from 2006 by Osvaldo Gorejov, Azul, in which a concerto for cello and some colleagues for atmosphere, something like that. Anywho, with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and I hope I'll be able to get down, and I hope a lot of you that are watching throughout Southern California will have an opportunity to catch this concert. This is going to be a good one. Joshua Roman, I think we've done it all. Thanks very much for giving me some time, and I look forward to seeing you in Santa Barbara soon, let alone Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. Heading out west again. I love it.
Okay.
See
So
you
far the
there.
climate's good. All right.
Yes,
See ya.
always.
Okay. Bye-bye.